It wasn't a rock formation. It wasn't a trench. It was a 95,000-ton impossibility. The sonar pulse from the Aegis Explorer didn't return a standard echo. It hit something massive, metallic, and impossibly deep in a sector of the Philippine Sea, where the charts show nothing but a 4-mile drop to the abyssal plain. When the ROV's high-definition lights finally cut through the particulate snow of the deep, they didn't find a volcanic ridge or a sunken freighter. They found a flight deck, sprawling and jagged, spanning nearly 1,000 feet across the seabed. It was a sight that should have been physically impossible. A Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, the pinnacle of American naval power, resting in the crushing darkness of the hadal zone. But the USS Nimitz is currently on active duty, accounted for, and sailing thousands of miles away. This discovery occurred during a private deep-sea research expedition, officially described as a tectonic plate survey. In the early hours of February 14th, at a depth of 18,000 feet, the Aegis team's multi-beam echo sounder registered a structural anomaly that defied the surrounding geology. The sheer scale of the object suggested a natural formation, yet the angles were too precise, the geometry too intentional. As the remotely operated vehicle descended, the blue-gray steel of a carrier's hull emerged from the darkness. It bore the unmistakable hull number 68, the designation of the USS Nimitz. The ship was upright, settled into the silt, as if it had been lowered gently by a giant hand. Yet the hull was scorched with patterns of heat damage that should not exist in an underwater environment. This wasn't a wreck from the past. It was a ghost of the present. Initial scans revealed a disturbing lack of marine life. Usually, a wreck at this depth becomes a thriving artificial reef, an oasis for extremophiles and deep-sea scavengers. This vessel, however, was barren. There was no coral, no sponges, not even the ubiquitous deep-sea tripod fish. The water surrounding the hull was recorded at a temperature 4 degrees higher than the ambient environment, suggesting a lingering thermal energy source deep within the ship's reactors. The team, realizing they were looking at a physical impossibility, began a systematic external survey. The flight deck was littered with the remains of F/A 18 Super Hornets, but they weren't crushed by the pressure as physics would dictate. Instead, they looked as though they had been fused into the deck itself, the metal of the aircraft bleeding into the steel of the carrier in a seamless molecular bond. The technical measurements taken by the ROV's laser scalers only deepened the mystery. The steel of the hull, which should have been undergoing rapid galvanic corrosion in salt water, showed a molecular density 30% higher than standard military-grade HY-100 steel. It wasn't just preserved, it was reinforced at a level that exceeded modern metallurgical capabilities. Furthermore, the radiation sensors on the ROV began to spike, not with the expected signature of a leaking nuclear reactor, but with a rhythmic, pulsing frequency. It was a low-energy emission that matched the cadence of a human heartbeat. This wasn't a dead ship. It was a vessel that appeared to be in a state of suspended biological stasis, its very structure vibrating with a life force that defied every law of naval architecture. As the ROV maneuvered toward the primary island structure, the cameras captured something that halted the expedition's progress. The windows of the primary flight control bridge were not shattered by the 5,000 pounds per square inch of pressure at this depth. They were intact, and behind the reinforced glass, the lights were on. A dim, amber glow emanated from the internal consoles, illuminating a bridge that appeared to be fully operational. The digital displays were flickering with data streams that the ROV's optical character recognition software couldn't decode. Symbols that resembled English characters but were structured in a non-linear, multi-dimensional syntax. The bridge was empty of people, yet the systems were actively communicating with an unknown source. The expedition pushed the ROV toward an open hangar bay door on the starboard side, seeking an entry point. As the vehicle crossed the threshold into the interior of the ship, the external feed flickered with heavy electromagnetic interference. Inside, the horror mentioned in the initial classified reports became chillingly literal. The hangar bay was not filled with seawater. A shimmering translucent membrane held the ocean at bay, creating a pressurized pocket of air or some other gas. Scattered across the deck were the remains of the crew. They were not skeletons, and they had not decomposed. They were perfectly preserved, standing at their stations, but their bodies had undergone a terrifying metamorphosis. Their skin had taken on a metallic sheen, and their limbs were elongated, tapering into fine, needle-like filaments that plugged directly into the ship's control panels. The primary twist came when the ROV's high-resolution camera zoomed in on a service plaque near the hangar elevator. The commissioning date etched into the brass wasn't 1975, the year the real USS Nimitz entered service. It was 2048. The ship found at the bottom of the Philippine Sea wasn't a ghost from the past. It appeared to be a relic from a future that has not yet occurred. Yet, its condition suggested it had been sitting in the silt for centuries. The paradox of a future vessel appearing in a state of ancient decay created a temporal knot that the research team couldn't untangle. This wasn't a simple shipwreck. It was a collision of timelines, a physical manifestation of a structural failure in the fabric of reality itself. To explain this anomaly, three competing theories have emerged within the tight-knit circle of deep-sea archaeologists and theoretical physicists. The mainstream explanation, though heavily debated, suggests a black project gone wrong, a top-secret experiment in cloaking or stealth technology that utilized experimental metamaterials. Proponents of this theory argue that the ship is a classified prototype built to mimic the Nimitz to hide its true nature, and that the future date is a deliberate piece of misinformation designed to confuse any foreign intelligence that might discover the wreck. They claim the biological fusion of the crew is actually an advanced form of cybernetic integration designed to allow a smaller crew to operate a massive vessel. The alternative explanation leans into the realm of high-energy physics. It suggests that the Philippine Sea sits atop a powerful geomagnetic anomaly, a vile vortex similar to the Bermuda Triangle. According to this theory, the vessel is the result of spontaneous temporal displacement. The ship found on the seabed is the actual USS Nimitz, but from a parallel timeline or a future point where human technology is merged with synthetic biology. The heat damage on the hull isn't from fire, but from the friction of moving through the membrane between 2 points in space-time. This theory accounts for the heartbeat-like radiation. The ship isn't just a machine, it has become a living, breathing organism designed to survive the rigors of temporal transit. Then, there is the uncomfortable possibility that the discovery isn't human at all. Some analysts point to the non-linear symbols on the bridge displays and the bizarre molecular structure of the steel as evidence of mimicry. They suggest that an extraterrestrial or terrestrial intelligence residing in the deep trenches is printing versions of our own technology as a way to study us, or perhaps as a form of bait. In this scenario, the crew aren't humans who were transformed, but biological constructs grown to inhabit the shell of a human warship. The horror isn't that the ship came from the future. It's that it may have been built by something that doesn't understand the difference between a person and a circuit. The investigation into the wreck came to an abrupt and violent halt 3 weeks after the discovery. The Aegis Explorer was intercepted by a carrier strike group, the active-duty USS Nimitz. The research team's data was confiscated under the authority of the Department of Naval Intelligence, citing national security interests regarding sensitive hydrographic data. The crew was forced to sign non-disclosure agreements that carry the threat of indefinite detention. Since then, the coordinates of the discovery have been designated as a no-navigation zone for all civilian traffic, and satellite imagery of the area is consistently obscured by what appears to be atmospheric aerosol spraying or intentional digital blurring. This systemic resistance isn't just about protecting a secret weapon. It hints at a deep-seated fear within the military hierarchy. If the Navy admits that a duplicate of their flagship exists at the bottom of the ocean, especially one that predates its own construction or originates from its future, the entire foundation of maritime law and strategic deterrence collapses. Funding for deep-sea exploration in that sector has been redirected into undersea cable maintenance, a common front for acoustic monitoring of a specific site. Academic institutions that attempted to publish the ROV's preliminary findings found their grants revoked and their servers sanitized by unknown actors. The ship is being erased from history before it even officially exists. The silence surrounding the deep-sea Nimitz raises a meta-question that extends far beyond a single missing ship. If the ocean depths are acting as a repository for objects that defy our understanding of time and biology, then our maps of the world are fundamentally incomplete. We are accustomed to thinking of the sea as a vast, empty space, a graveyard for the things we lose. But what if the abyss isn't just a place where things go to die, but a place where reality is being rewritten? We are left to wonder whether the USS Nimitz currently sailing the surface is the original, or if the one integrated into the seabed is the true version of our reality. reality. The discrepancy in the dates and the horrifying fusion of crew and machine suggest a destination for humanity that we are not prepared to face. As we continue to probe the deepest trenches of our planet, we may find that the most disturbing discoveries aren't the things we find, but the things that have been waiting for us to find them. The ocean remains the ultimate frontier, not because of its distance, but because of its ability to hold secrets that challenge the very definition of what it means to exist in time. If the abyss can swallow a carrier and spit back a nightmare, we have to ask ourselves, what else is resting in the silt, waiting for its clock to start?